There you go, we'll start this over. My name is Sean here with ColDesi, and today we're going to be going over metallic thread and sewing with it and what you should look for, what you should try, what to adjust, what to digitize with. Metallic thread is tricky to sew with. It's basically little metal wire wrapped around a regular cone of thread to give you the metallic look. They come in different sizes. We have our 5500 spool. I think Majera might sell a larger one. Different colors you can get them in. They are tricky to sew with, I'm not going to lie. You will find that the material is a little more stretchier than regular thread. You will find you'll have more thread breaks with the metallic thread than you would regular thread. The things to look for, though, is if you know you're going to be sewing a design with metallic thread, you want to digitize your design specifically for the metallic. The same way if you're sewing on a hat, you're going to digitize it for a hat. You sew on left chest, you can sew it for left chest. Jacket back, you digitize right jacket back. So if you know you're sewing with metallic thread in part of the design, you want to digitize it that way. You don't want to have too much density, so you want to decrease your density a little bit for your designs. You don't want to overlap them too many times. What I mean by that is if you got different sections, you don't want to put color on top of color on top of color so that there is no gap between the edges. But what happens is you put a lot of friction with this needle and this thread going through those extra layers into the fabric, and then coming back out, you get a lot of thread breaks with the metallic thread. The other suggestion I would definitely do would be change the needle out that you're going to be sewing the metallic thread with. Coleman & Company sells a needle that is specifically geared towards metallic thread. It's called a metallic needle. And basically what it is the eye of the needle is probably a couple of millimeters larger than your normal thread, your normal needle, the 7511, 80/12, or the titanium needles. And what that does is, instead of a regular 7511 sharp needle, what happens is when the thread goes through the eye of the needle, so I don't have a needle here, but I'll show on our hoop, is let's say it's a 7511 sharp needle. So what happens when the thread comes underneath and then goes through, it starts rubbing a groove on either the top or the bottom of that eyelet of the needle. So when you're done sewing, you now have metal against metal rubbing against each other. You'll get a little bit of a burr on that needle. So you'll either start getting a lot of thread breaks with the metallic, or when you switch back to a normal thread, because you've got the burr, you'll start to see that particular thread getting shreddy, to where it actually looks like it's peeled back layer by layer, and that's because of the groove in the eye of the needle that the metallic thread caused. So what happens is you get a metallic needle, and I'll just use this one bigger. It is more of a bigger eyelet, so what happens when the thread comes in, you get more of a whiplash action than actually just a smooth running groove of that thread going against the eyelet of the needle. And with that, the whiplash action, you don't get that burr that you normally would get with a 7511 sharp or a 90/12, 80/12 needle. And when you're done with the metallic thread, take that needle off, put it to the side, put your regular 7511 sharp or ballpoint, whatever you're using before, back into the machine, and put your regular cone of thread on there. If you know you're sewing with metallic a lot, maybe put it on needle 15, and then leave that needle right down here as the metallic needle, and never have to change it, unless you feel like getting dull or you're starting to see, the metallic thread on that needle isn't sewing very well, then you want to swap that metallic needle out. I tell customers the same thing. If you're sewing, certain designs with ballpoint, certain designs with sharp, just switch the needles out that you're sewing with. No need to switch out all 15, just that one particular needle. Are there any questions so far about the metallic threads or the needle to use? And like I said, Coleman & Company does sell the metallic needle. I'm not sure of the price. You just go to colemanandcompany.com. and then go underneath the embroidery section and search for needles. Also, with the metallic thread, when digitizing, you want to decrease the density. So where if you're using the Sierra software and you're normally using a density, let's say of 5.85 or 6.25 for your normal designs, with the metallic thread, I'd probably drop it to say 4.85 to a 5.25. And the reason is if it's too thick and too compact together, your needle's pretty much going over itself while it's sewing. So you're pretty much shredding your own thread with the needle going over the same line too close. So you want to spread those out. And even a 4.85 density compared to a 6.25 is not a lot of change. And with the metallic thread, it still looks filled in just as nice as a regular thread does with a 6.25 density. You want to slow your machine down. If you're normally sewing, say, at 850, 900 stitches a minute on flat modes, start sewing with the metallic thread. I probably want to drop it down to, let's say, a 700, 750, maybe 650. And that just reduces the friction of the needle going into the garment. You know, the faster you go, the more friction you're going to have. This is metal, so the friction will start to give you thread breaks. So slow the machine down, don't have to go as fast, and you won't have as many thread breaks. The other thing you want to do on the machine is your tension. You want to back off your tension. On the Avancé, I would probably do maybe 1 or 2 complete turns in reducing your density, and that's turning to the left. If it's too tight, you're putting too much tension on the thread, and what happens is it puts too much tension, and you start getting too much of a pull, and you start popping the thread as you're sewing. So you want to reduce the tension by loosening the top tensions here, and I would start off with maybe 1 to 2 turns, and then if you see it's kind of loose, then start going by maybe 1/4 turns, tightening it back up to the right until you get that nice smooth sew out. Which is why you always want to do a separate sew out before sewing on the customer's garment, so that you can test this and get everything just right before ruining the customer's jacket, shirt, or what have you. The material you're sewing on with the metallic thread makes a big difference. If you're sewing on a t-shirt material compared to you go into a canvas material, you're going to see more friction with a canvas material because it's a lot thicker, it's more coarse. You'll probably get more thread breaks going through a canvas material than you would a t-shirt, you know, a silk blouse, you know, leather. It's a little bit of a thick material. Dog collars, thick material. Karate belts, really thick material. You'll see you'll get a lot of friction on those. I've had customers even take silicone spray and spray it on the needle itself occasionally to make it kind of like a slippery. So when it goes through the fabric, you don't have that much heat friction. Kind of cools it a little bit. That'll help out. But Coleman & Company also sells that if you see, you know, cones different, you know, different companies, the way they wind their cones, that when you put them on there, you'll see sometimes when a metallic thread comes off, it's really twisty and starts grabbing another color behind it. So what happens when it pulls through, you get thread breaks because it's twisted into another color. A couple ways you can do that. You can actually bring the plastic pieces back here a little higher up and have your cone sit higher up here. Coleman & Company sells what is called a net. I think it's metallic thread net. And it's basically like a fishing net or a hair net. I'll show you this. And it's just, they come in packs of 10. And basically what you would do is once you put the cone of thread on there, is you would just lay this over top and have the thread, let me pull the thread up top here, and have the thread come through the top. What this does is this keeps it from twisting and winding off. You're still going to get some, but not as much as you normally would. And then you've got your cone, your thread coming up this way, and this helps having it twist off and unwind on the actual cone. So this helps as well. And you can see this is a little bit larger than this cone. This is also geared towards the larger cones that Madeira sells. So this net works really great. I would buy, if I'm full of metallic, I would definitely get a couple of metallic needles and definitely get some netting for the metallic thread, because I've sewn with metallic, you know, 25 plus years, and it is a very twisty, sometimes aggravating cone to sew with just because of the metallic of it. But once you get that down pat of the density, the tension, the speed, your needle, the net, sewing with metallic is just like sewing with a regular cone of thread. There's just not any difference once you get that pattern down pat. But it is tricky, and it is trial and error. And just take a scrap piece of T-shirt that you've messed up, or that you're hanging in the closet you used for years, and use that as a test sample, and just different designs, and just test them with satin stitches, with fill stitches, and get that down pat of what density to use, and then the speed and the tension knobs up top. Any questions so far on using metallic threads with the needles, the nets, tensions, anything like that? Anybody have any questions? Okay, yeah, density, like I said, density, you want to reduce the density when digitizing, and that would include with the underlay. Rather than use like a zigzag pattern in the Sierra software, which is basically a satin stitch that's just a lot loose, I would probably drop it down to, say, a running stitch and just have it run right through the middle. Because of the thickness of the metallic thread and you're reducing the density, it will cover very well. So yeah, so the top density as well as the underlay is I'd probably just reduce it to a center walk for the underlay in this. Overlapping, I would say you probably want to overlap the metallic thread maybe like the cursor's width, which is just a couple of millimeters inside. You don't want to do too much, because then you're sewing over a section that's got a lot of density compared to a little bit of density, and you don't want that much friction going through the fabric, through that other thread, causing you thread breaks. So you definitely want to be careful when you're overlapping the sections. I had one customer that tried this. I'm not sure, it sounds kind of crazy. You know, being in playing softball many years, we used to stick our softballs in the microwave to soften them up a little bit. But, you know, I had a customer take the metallic threads, stick them in the freezer 2 to 5 minutes, she said, and it will actually help with the twisting and the unwinding of the thread coming off the cone. So that's another little trick or suggestion, you know, to experiment with. Is just stick your cone of thread in your freezer for a few minutes, take it out, and it won't have as much of a winding or a twisting effect coming off the cone as it's going to sew. Are there any questions so far? Any other questions? Okay, yeah, backing is, you know, depending on what you're sewing, but I would try to use a very soft backing. I wouldn't use a, you know, what I mean by soft, I mean a very, I think like right here, what's a big piece, is just a very soft, you know, lightweight cutaway backing. I wouldn't use a stiff, I wouldn't use tearaway, I wouldn't use a heavy ounce cutaway. I would use a soft, maybe a 2-ounce cutaway backing, and probably just use one rather than you know, doubling it up, making it 2 when sewing metallic, because you want as less piece of that needle to go through to cause as less friction as possible, so you get as less thread breaks. You definitely want to minimize the thread breaks, so you do everything possible to minimize that. So I would definitely choose a soft, maybe like a 2-ounce soft cutaway backing, and then go from there. Do we have any other questions? Yeah, I mean, you know, sewing with metallic thread, it's like sewing on hats. You know, it's a niche, you know, but you got to practice to get it to where you feel comfortable enough, and the densities and the tensions and everything works together. Everything's you know, has to be even. Just like when you're doing with regular thread, your top tension's gotta work with your bobbin tension. If it doesn't, if one or the other is off too much, you're gonna get a lot of thread breaks, thread shreds, or looping, or bird's nest, one or the other. So sewing metallic threads, just like hats, it just takes practice, and you know, just take designs and just, you know, type in your name, create your name, create a design, create a sun with a sailboat, something small, and then just practice sewing with a metallic thread and getting a feel for it. So that when that customer does come in and they want their their name on the front in a gold metallic, you know exactly what density, what underlay, what tension, what speed, everything to sew out. All you've got to worry about is just your hooping and getting it out to the customer. So I would definitely practice with the metallic thread, just as I've suggested before on other webinars, to practice hooping a hat, because that is also very tricky. Any other questions so far that I can answer before wrapping this up? I mean, it's not a long webinar, not a big webinar. It is metallic thread, just few suggestions, trial and error until you get the feel for it. But like I said, it's definitely definitely practice. Buy yourself a net. They come in packs of 10. Get a couple of metallic needles, and only put it on one needle. Whether it be 15 or it be 1, but keep it there. Excuse me. And obviously, if you have any issues, feel free to definitely contact the support department. We'll definitely help you out any way we can. But we try to do these webinars to to give you more of a on hands one-on-one, so to speak, help with this. So, are there any questions? I do appreciate everybody coming out and spending a good 20-30 minutes with me today. I know you're busy, and I do appreciate that. Feel free to go to colemanandcompany.com and look at the thread nets, look at the metallic needles, look at the different colors of metallic threads that we sell, and feel free to just start experimenting. Like I said, just loosen your tension. I start off with 1 to 2 full turns to the left, and then start sewing. And while you're sewing, quarter turn to the right to tighten it back up if you're seeing looping. If it's not enough, just do it a quarter turn more to the left, and go from there until you get that tension just right. And then just take note of the silver screw inside the tension knob and how far down it is, how far out it is, where it's located, so that excuse me, when you do come back next month, 2 months down the road, you're showing another metallic design, you know where to back that off as a good starting point, because you've done this before and you've got a good idea of where it should be when starting to sew. This, the reason I stopped at the beginning, I recorded it. It is recorded, so everybody will get this video if you register with an email address. So don't fret, you will have this coming to your email box probably within the week, I would say, once we download it and get it sent over to everybody's email address. All right, any other questions for today? I do appreciate everybody coming out. We do this for you to help you out. If you have any suggestions, ideas, topics you would like us to cover, please feel free to email Mark Stevenson or on the Custom Apparel Startups Facebook page, and we will definitely get that going and do the webinars to better help you, to get you more advanced questions than you would normally get over the phone with a tech, or if you come to house or online training. So we want you to feel comfortable, feel like family, and we want you to make money, so we're here to help you in whatever issues you may have. So if you have a topic that you want to work on sewing puff on hats, sewing appliques, sewing tackle twill, digitizing, feel free to throw it up there, and Mark will get with me and we'll get these things taken care of, and we'll put them up as webinars. Don't forget, we do have a webinar this Friday at 10 a.m. It will be going over the software. So we have the machines on Wednesday at 2 to 3, and we have the software on Fridays. I'm pretty sure it's still 10 to 11 is when those are. So I appreciate everybody coming out. Thank you, and if you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and email us in, and we'll be happy to take care of you. Hope everybody has a great rest of the week and a good weekend. Thank you.